So hi everybody and welcome to the next instalment of the Thinking Through Academy Neuro Nugget. And I'm Dave Palfreyman, and as always I'm joined by my regular mulling partner, mulling over the greatest issues, and that is the amazing Dr Fiona warner-Gale. So hi Fiona, how are you doing?
I'm good, and it's great to be here doing some mulling again. I always look forward to these podcasts, so hopefully that we can get some good content for everybody today. We're focusing on a really important topic today, aren't we?
We are. And so without further ado, let's get in. And yeah, the topic of choice today is sleep. What is sleep? Why is it important? And what happens when it goes wrong, when we don't sleep? What goes on in the brain and body? And yeah, this is going to be a pretty big, meaty topic. So
Yeah,
I want to dive in. So
right.
I think we should probably try and make a bit of a definition, I think, as a starting point. So what is sleep?
Well, it's a big question. Thanks for that, Dave. I, I think it's a thing that people wonder about a lot of the time, isn't it? It's like, at night, why do we do this every night? What's the actual point in that? People have said to me, do I have to go to sleep again? I'm wasting half my life here.
Yeah.
But it isn't just you going lying down and shutting your eyes and having some lovely or weird dreams, or none at all. It's an active process in the brain. And if we didn't sleep, we'd be in a right old pickle. So it's essential for learning, memory, and emotional balance. It performs a really big function. So it's not a passive thing at all. It's not that you go to bed and that's it, nothing happens. Think of it as your brain's reset, essentially.
I love that. I love that idea of it's a reset, because
Yeah,
and I agree. I think it's a biological non-negotiable, isn't it?
absolutely.
It's an absolute necessity. Um, and I guess what's interesting, I think, it's one of those things that throughout evolution, it's one of those traits that has stayed with animals since animals were ever a thing. And it's
Yeah,
not, because like you said, that idea of what's this all about? Why do we have it? And surely, why didn't we evolve out of it? Because
yeah. It doesn't seem
because from
very
a
effective, really, does it?
no, because if you think, if you kind of think of, as hunter gatherers, well, if I'm sleeping, I'm neither hunting nor I'm gathering. I'm not procreating because to continue the species. So what's that all
Yeah,
about? Um,
exactly. Yeah, and it's your brain's really, really active and busy during the day. And what we do know is from neuroscience is that it takes a lot of energy to run a brain.
mm,
Um, and so I try and work really hard about thinking about things so that I can maintain my fitness. No, I'm only joking. But it actually burns up a big proportion of your energy reserves,
yeah,
and it's super busy. So if you think about all of the stuff that's coming into our brains, the sensory um, experiences that we're having on a day to day, the learning, the little things we have to remember, our shopping lists, what our children look like,
yeah,
that sort of thing. Actually, it's taking in all of that information, and what it does at night is it not only resets, so it powers down a little, it doesn't use as much energy, but it's also filing and restoring and recharging our neural systems ready for the next day. And that's, the amount of information we take in that needs to be sifted and prioritized, and, essentially deciding whether we commit it to memory.
mm,
Something's got to do that.
yeah, yeah, of
When we're active all day, we might not do all of that. So the brain's busy doing all of that during the night.
course, yeah. And just to put a couple of figures to that, you were saying, it's our brain's really, really active constantly. Well, if we make the, we know that the brain on average weighs something like 1.4 kilos, about 3 pounds in weight. So less than 2% of the body's mass, but yet takes over 20% of the body's calorific and metabolism to run effectively. So all of that blood sugar, oxygen, all goes to fueling this relatively small piece of our body.
Yeah.
So no wonder it's processing really heavily, constantly.
Yeah.
And therefore takes a lot of energy. So of course we have to. I guess what sleep's doing is it's like the night shift coming in and doing a deep clean, isn't it?
Bit of a maintenance,
changing a few light bulbs here and there, like fixing a broken
filing
door
stuff that people have left out, that sort of thing. Yeah. And I think that in itself is fascinating, but we have to remember that there's that brain there in your head, but I like to think of the brain as bigger than that. So it's also the central nervous system. So it's not just there for us kind of taking things in, reading, learning, etc., but it's running our body as well. It's keeping us alive. So if you think about that job it has to do, which is huge, we really need to do some things to make sure that it runs efficiently and effectively. And one of those is sleep. And we know, some of the others we know about is good food, exercise, downtime, all of that stuff. But sleep, if you take away quality sleep, people are a mess. They really are, because we need the brain to be at peak performance so that we can focus, be creative, make decisions, that sort of thing. And
that makes me think then, this whole idea of that we need sleep to help us learn and embed or encode memories, and so it has a significant impact on the hippocampus. The hippocampus being that small part of the brain that is effectively our filing cabinet of our memories. I think there's a whole other conversation there about how we memorize things, and it's not just in one part of the brain. But
absolutely,
we'll cover that in a different one.
So essentially what it's doing is the hippocampus is working really hard to sort of temporarily store new things and new facts, and then overnight it sort of prioritizes and codes those memories to decide, are they going into long-term memory? If we don't have that quality sleep, then the impact can be great in that you can forget stuff that your brain doesn't have a chance to recover, or that it may not get coded in the right way. And so what we really need to be able to do is retrieve memories really quickly. It's essentially about our survival. We're perhaps not under that amount of threat now, but what the brain's trying to do is get all of those memories sorted and easy to retrieve, so it almost becomes automatic, and that happens during sleep. And so when we think about some of the big brain functions in the daytime, might be about making decisions and things, we can pull on that really quickly. But when we're tired, and think about yourself, when you're tired, you start to make mistakes. You can't draw on those on that executive function as well. It all starts to fall apart.
And that reminds me of a piece of research that came out of Stanford Berkeley, in 2015, 2016, and that was where they took two groups of individuals and they did some tests. But one group of individuals had a good 8 hours sleep before the test, and then the other group were basically deprived of sleep, and they weren't given caffeine. So I suspect that they all had a pretty miserable time of it.
It sounds fun.
and then they put them in an fMRI scanner, and they did some research. They did some tests, and I think what was really interesting out of that is that of all of the people, all of the non-sleepers performed 40% worse than those that had got a good 8 hours sleep. And I think that's really telling. 40% worse. And that was across a whole raft of people. It wasn't like one or two. So I think what we can say out of that is, if you think that as an exam, that's the difference between smashing an exam and failing it and having to resit it or not.
No, it kind of 40%. I mean, that's huge, isn't it? If you think about how we put people under pressure in that way, thinking our young people, really. I know the brain's still pretty malleable at exam time. They're still developing and they've got all of those things going on. But if we put them in a situation where they're feeling threatened, more than likely they won't get good sleep. And so they enter into those exams not in peak performance.
Yeah.
It doesn't really support why we have exams, does it?
I know it's pretty remarkable, isn't it? But and if we can, and some people, there'll be people on this watching this going, well, that doesn't really affect me because I'm not doing exams. But we can transpose exam to a significant meeting with a prospective client, or a project that has got to be completed on time. And if we've had a poor night's sleep, or we've got to have a difficult conversation where there's people
on your feet.
And we want to make sure that we get a good outcome to ensure that that for both the company and potentially the person that we're about to have a difficult conversation with. And if we're tired and not thinking effectively, then we may end up getting a pretty poor outcome.
Absolutely. And if you think about sort of the science behind sleep, so we know that brain cycles through non-REM and REM sleep every 90 minutes. So if you're getting into that deep non-REM sleep, then the brain's storing and stabilizing new information. If we get into REM sleep, then it strengthens the connections between memories and it turns facts into understanding and experience and an insight. But if we don't ever enable ourselves to get through that cycle, so that we're in non-REM and then REM, it's really going to impact how memories are stored. And then additionally, it flushes out toxins at night that build up when we're awake. So it's cleaning it out. It's giving it a hose down, the lymphatic system, and all its toxins. And things like not getting regular sleep can have all sorts of risk factors for your health. If you think if we're not flushing the toxins out of our brain properly, then it's going to impact on our health in the long term. Things like, our memory.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that goes down. So there's a really interesting book called Why We Need Sleep by Dr. Matt Walker, out of Stanford, and some of the work I mentioned earlier was done by his lab. Incidentally, we're not paid by anybody to promote that book.
Other books are available.
Other books are available, but that is a pretty good book that if you're looking for a good book to put on your shelf. But some of that work was very much, he started by trying to review stuff around Alzheimer's and depression and dementias. And one of the things that he noticed was that with dementias that sleep was affected, and he couldn't quite tie up what was going on. But then when he went, well, what happens if I look at it from a different perspective, and that sleep affects dementia, or can be an indicator or a supporter of particular dementia, such as being Alzheimer's. That we then get that he started seeing all of these correlations to the point where it's further research has then proven that it is a link, and therefore long-term terrible night's sleep has huge impact on our physical body, and and long term in terms of things like dementia. And
Yeah.
then going off on one, the other interesting thing here then is the World Health Organization in 2020. I mean, they produced a report from some study in 2019, 2020 that have, and you can go online and find this for yourselves, is that they're saying anybody that has a regular disrupted sleep pattern or is involved in work that involves you losing sleep, so regular night shifts, has a contributing factor to carcinogenic factors in the body. That's not to say you miss a few nights sleep and you're going to get cancer.
I think you can recover quite quickly from a few nights sleep. It's when it's prolonged, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we're not flushing out our system essentially.
But it's not, and that's it. It's not flushing out that system.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting, point, that when there's enough research out there now that the World Health Organization is saying there's an undeniable link here. That has to be taken a little bit serious, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's quite scary when you look at some of the work on tired brains, isn't it? We've already touched on it, but I think, without quality sleep, it's not just about performance on your next day on your exam, but it impacts learning in general.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't get enough sleep, your hippocampus can't effectively record new stuff, and so you can't learn as well. Which, I mean, it's something to think about with anyone who's trying to learn, is that make sure you get enough sleep. And you say that to busy professionals, are like, what are you talking about? But actually, I know that if I try and learn something tired and then I don't sleep as well, I may as well have forgotten it. I've just wasted a bunch of time, because it's so hard to then store it and recall it if your brain doesn't go into those phases that we need.
Because and that again is part of that research, is that we see an underactivation of the hippocampus, which then means that another way of looking at that is it's like an email bouncing. You're trying to send an email to somebody and it just keeps bouncing. The information's hitting your mental inbox, but your hippocampus is just going, sorry, we're closed. Yeah. And the information doesn't get
your inbox is overloaded.
Your inbox is full and cannot accept any more emails. And
it's a good analogy, really. I just wish somebody would come along overnight while I'm asleep and clear mine out, so that it's not there. Yeah.
And I think that's a fascinating topic, isn't it? Which actually, then I think I'll circle back to this, but I think that's an interesting idea about, are we, are you a night owl or are you a up with the lark morning person? And we know that societally that we have both. And actually, arguably, evolution suggests that that the strength in numbers, and that's one of the reasons why we're tribal people, that we have in groups and out groups, is that there's strength in numbers. And so by having people that sleep in the morning and people that sleep, well, however that works, but people that are morning people and late night people, means that you're, instead of being asleep and at risk for 8 hours, you're reducing that down to maybe only a couple hours.
The day. What are you then, Dave?
I'm more of a morning person than a night owl, but my wife is very much a night owl.
I'm a morning person.
So I think there's
I like to get up in the morning. I don't like to talk to anybody, but I like to get up and just think about stuff. I'm usually up quite early.
We're very much the same in that case. Get up and just kind of, have a bit of quiet time.
That's good. It's good to have that. But you're right. It's important to know. I know we're joking about it, but it's important to know which you are, because if you push too much on the door that isn't you, it's going to have all sorts of implications for your learning and for your sleep rhythm, really. And we are people who like to fit with a rhythm. Including the neurobiology of sleep and the science behind why we would need a rhythm. So some of those things that are really important for sleep I don't know if you have any top tips, Dave, about how you get really good sleep.
I mean, I've generally been, I mean, it's an interesting point because I've generally slept really well, but what I've noticed is as I get older, my sleep is not as good as it was when I was, 20 years younger. However, I mean, for me, I think it's so if we think about that we are creatures of habit.
Yeah.
So I think going to sleep at the same time and waking up or getting out of bed at the same time is really key. I think they're really important factors. So, whatever time that is, do that. But if you find that you're awake in the middle of the night, get up and do something different and then go back to bed. It
works. It's just getting out of bed that's hard.
Absolutely. Because I heard a great analogy, which is, we lay in bed, hoping that we'll get tired, but you don't sit at the dining table waiting to get hungry.
Yeah.
So why would you lay in bed waiting to get tired? Get up and do something different and then come back in a little while. So what you're doing is by habit and association, you're associating your bedroom with sleep.
Yeah.
The other things that I definitely do now is I'm not a fan of a TV in the bedroom.
No, never had one.
And I do not have my phone in the bedroom. So my phone stays downstairs on the desk, and it doesn't come to the bedroom. So what I'm avoiding doing is for that half an hour or even an hour before I go to bed, before I go to sleep, is I'm avoiding exposing myself to blue light, the stuff that you get off your phone screen, because of course that blue light is that our brain associates with waking up, morning,
in daytime,
and in daytime. So it starts to release serotonin, which is the opposite of melatonin. Melatonin being the hormone that we need for sleep. So it's counter intuitive, and I can go off on a rant about social media, and I love social media. I use it as much as everybody else, but I think there has to be a place of just going, I'm going to put it down, because if we're and actually there was relatively recent studies, even on TV, where they've seen children in schools performance improving when they had a detox for a month, just because they got an extra hour's sleep, and that 1 hour had a massive impact on their performance.
I think, well, we know that rhythms are really important for us because the brain has a circadian rhythm, doesn't it? So it really does thrive on routine. So I know lots of people talk about this, but I think sleep hygiene is about having those really good routines and rituals in place when it's bedtime. I mean, you can go out partying and to a nightclub in Ibiza and dancing all hours, as I did recently. I was tired the day after. But actually what I soon then did was get back into my rhythm. So I've got a definite rhythm. It happens really whether I do it purposefully or not, but usually about 10 o'clock, everything starts powering down in my head. And I think that works for children as well. My daughter has always been a brilliant sleeper. She's now in the adolescent phase where they have to sleep forever. It's an actual thing. They probably need around 12 to 14 hours of sleep a day, and they sleep at different times. So the start of a school day does not really work for adolescents.
No.
That's why they're all grumpy and demotivated in the morning. But having that rhythm is really good. And like you say around melatonin, there's a reason why we draw the curtains at night. And that's telling our brain it's time to release melatonin. So if we dim the lights, I always put a little bedside light on, darken the room, and I love it being dark. I've got like blackout blinds and everything. And a slightly cooler room as well apparently triggers sleep onset.
Yeah, because to fall asleep.
Things. Yeah.
Sorry,
no, go ahead.
To fall asleep, our body has to drop. Our core temperature drops 2 to 3 degrees. For us to sleep, which is why we find it easy to fall asleep in a cooler room than we do in a hot room, and we know this from from people trying to sleep in the depths of summer when it's
boiling,
it's still boiling hot, and you kind of laid there sweating on your bed, where in winter you get under your duvet. I'm a stick my feet out the bottom of the duvet.
Yeah, I'm a stick my foot out first. Yeah, I actually like to be colder. I think it's good. I know we have all blankets and all sorts of things, but yeah, that don't have your bedroom hot. Like you said, that power down of screens. If you can get into a habit like that, like you said, I have a time when my phone switches off and I can't take calls unless they're emergency, and none of my notifications pop up. But I try and actually stop messing with my phone around 9:30 if possible, and then that's it until the next morning.
I mean, I think, and that's and I think it's interesting. Again, there's partly this stuff about habit and routine that says, and that sounds like what you're doing. 9:30, 10 o'clock, you're getting into that sort of phase of getting ready. Your body's starting to calm down, and then you get into bed and then you're ready to go to sleep. But and this is one of my soapbox problems, that we have a culture that that performance is king, that arguably society is telling us that we either have to consume or we have to produce, and while we're sleeping we're doing neither of that. And the social media is the algorithm wants us to consume, and that's great, and we have a culture of producing, don't we? And
pulling the extra hours, sweating the project, all that.
And you see the kind of the influencers that say, I'm up at 5, in the gym by 5:30, I've done my emails by 7:30 before most people have got out of bed and done the shower, and yet they're still up at midnight. Well, from the stuff that we've just been talking about, something's got to give, and we know that poor sleep and not enough sleep has an impact. So I think that we can't sustain long-term late nights and early mornings, because it just doesn't work effectively.
And if you think about those who struggle with getting off to sleep, quite often it's because you've got a lot going around in your head. I was going to say I've got a song that's stuck in my head then, but that's also a thing. But I think, like, building in, I call it power down time. Like, you might power your phone off and then plug it in its battery and so it charges overnight. Do the same thing with yourself. I think journaling or writing notes before bed can help to download that stuff that you're going to be thinking about all night. But I also like to build in a power down at the end of my working day, whereby for the next day, I've already noted for the next morning the things that I need to cover, because otherwise you've got it knocking about in your head and it's kind of useless, and some of it might slip out because you've not slept well and all of that. So if you can build in power down and then you're clearing that space for rest, it's a really good trick to do.
Right. Yeah. There's I love that. I really like that, and that reminds me of something that I use myself, which is if I'm working on something, that I'll either psychologically write draft on it, or if I've got it on paper, or I'm typing on a screen, I'll put draft on it, because it means that if I come back to it, it's unfinished,
but that's okay.
But it means I can put it down because it's draft.
Absolutely. And that's okay. You're not going to go to bed and think, flipping heck, I should have I've not put that in and not done this. But if you do, just write them down. Keep a diary next to you.
And that's part of that, what that default mode mechanism does, doesn't it? Of when we're not actively working on something, we're kind of doing something else, and we come back to it. And we often hear people having those aha moments, don't they, where they've they've been involved in something. They've gone, right, I'll put that down. I'll go for a walk. I'll come back to it the following day. You have a sleep on it, and you wake up in the morning, you're going,
you can
I've
trigger
got it.
that. Yeah, eureka.
Because you've been processing that overnight while you're subconscious, and then you make a connection that you didn't think, or when you were trying to force it, you kind of because we go down the paths that are well trod, and sometimes the default, that default mode, just might make a connection that we hadn't focused on.
And your brain's like busy going, "Ooh, what about this? Let's put that together." And if you're getting enough sleep to do that, and they're stored in the right places, it can retrieve them much better. And that's when you have aha moments, is when you get into that optimal place.
Absolutely.
So just thinking about sleep, then, it sounds to me like it's not an actual time waster at all.
No, I think you're right. I think it's very much not it's very much it's that, not, well, as I said earlier, it's a biological necessity that is non-negotiable. We absolutely have to get involved in sleep. And we have to practice it.
It's a superpower, isn't it? Essentially.
And because if we don't, it affects how we work, and how we perform. And there's a great little formula by a guy called Tim Galway, who wrote a book called The Inner Game of Tennis like 20-30 years ago. And he says your performance is equal to your potential minus the interference, and your potential is affected by how tired you are, how, as much as what your physical capability is, as much as what your knowledge and experience is. And so we can increase that by, one, getting a good night's sleep, two, going on some training and learning and developing our knowledge, but we can do something about getting a good night's sleep. I think the other interesting thing here is, because we haven't really talked about the amount of time, but we're talking about 7 to 9 hours, aren't we, in terms of a good number of sleep. And like you said, there are times where, as a young person, we might need more. But the average in the UK, looking at some figures before I came on this call, the average in the UK is about 6 hours 20 minutes, 6 hours 30. But so we're at least half an hour under.
That's what I think. It's trying to protect that, isn't it? If you've got to get up early, like I've got children, so I have to get up early and make sure she does what she needs to do in the morning. And so we've got to get to bed early enough to be able to do that on a regular basis. Like you say, we can pull a late one and we can recover quite quickly from that. But if we're not getting that routine sleep and it's eroding that number of hours that's optimum for our functioning, then it's time to do something about it and look at your sleep hygiene, really.
And that makes me then think about stuff around, if we get tired and we go, okay, we'll get an early night because we've got, I'm going to be busy the following day. It's a bit like your phone, isn't it? You can only charge your battery to 100%. We can't like a bank go, oh, I'm going to overpay for a few days because I'm going to be taking
and then I'll roll it in a couple of days' time.
So you can only ever get your usual sleep amount in. You can't pay it forward, as it were.
Pay it forward. But I think
but it can take several days for us to recover back to our full, our battery being fully charged.
100%. I remember when I was on night duty, we'd be on night duty for about 3 months when I was working in hospitals, and I was a complete mess because I couldn't sleep in the day at all. It's not good for you unless you can get that rhythm going. I've seen people who can absolutely ace night shifts, but for me, I was a mess, which culminated in me getting a ticket for driving badly on the way home. Once. This is many years ago. I don't think I'd do nights again without realizing that actually I have to try and find a way to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's like if we want to remember more and learn faster and think more clearly, then it's absolutely what we need to do.
Yeah. And actually research is now suggesting that, because I reckon, similarly, I can remember a time where we would have people working permanent nights, and actually good practice now is we shouldn't have people working permanent nights because it's just physically not good for us. And,
No.
So says the stuff from the World Health Organization that says, we shouldn't do them permanently. So if you're working nights, you should have a period of working days to kind of help your body adjust.
Yeah.
I think it's a really important point. That.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's really interesting. I think that's a great topic for today.
It is, isn't it? So if there's a takeaway, what would be your takeaway from this?
I think I've said it a few times, but it absolutely isn't a time waster. It's essential for my memory, my emotional regulation, my mental restoration, and actually, I feel like I'm banking some good health for later life as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, what some great points, and I think mine is similarly is about that that emotional regulation, and when we're working with other people, when I'm rested, it's easy for me to regulate, and then I'm able to be calm if I'm working with somebody that's emotionally dysregulated.
Yeah, because it's really easy not to be if you're tired.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jump
Brilliant.
on dysregulation wagon. Yeah.
Well, I think again, great place to hold it there.
Yeah.
Thank you once again for such an amazing conversation, and
you look
we'll
forward to the next one.
Yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.